Okay, so he's gonna mute us because I think he's ready. What is it saying? Send.
Being live streamed.
Okay. Yes. We're like this thing that keeps us divided, you know, like, are you able to truly express?
Or one time for me Shazamming that song and discovering who the singer is.
Who is it?
I'm guessing it's you.
This is the song that started all of this.
Yeah, I was like, this is very fitting.
Very fitting.
Okay, good night.
It's a wrap.
Adult Conversations with Shar was designed to stimulate wholesome, honest, and provocative dialogue. The ultimate purpose of my platform is to transform lives by empowering people to face their truth, embrace their greatness, and impact the world for the better. Kevin Anthony Johnson is a minister of courage with over 25 years of expertise, challenging leaders and high-performance teams to live and lead with technologies of the heart. Sandy Cummings earned a bachelor's in sociology and a master's in psychology and is a retired volunteer marriage and family counselor after practicing for 22 years. Leon Walker Jr. is an articulate motivational speaker, mentor, teacher, and author, and has since become a social media influencer after going viral in 2021. His life's passion has become about sharing his journey as a narcissist who is on the path of healing.
Can stop it. Can everybody unmute? Hello and welcome, everybody. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I'm kind of in a festive mood today. I don't know about you all. Can you hear me? Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Somebody needs to turn down. Wall. Can you hear me? Happy holidays, Christmas. Somebody needs to turn down. Wall. Can you hear me? There's an echo. Somebody needs to turn down. Wall. Can you hear me? There's an echo. Somebody needs to turn down. Is that me? Is it gone?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, awesome. Yes, welcome, my friends. Thank you so much for being here. I don't think Sandy, well, everybody's been on this platform, but you don't know each other. Sandy and Kevin has been on the platform together. Leon is the only one that has not met you both. So I'd like to officially introduce you all. And I'm excited about where this conversation is going to go tonight. It's a little heavy, but I think it's fitting. Let me make sure I am, hold on one minute. The recovery process, a gift of healing. The recovery process, a gift of healing that we're giving to ourselves. So I just wanted to start with, I think I want to talk about, from the last show that when Leon was on, I had my ex-husband on, and it kind of went in a whole nother direction that I did not expect.
That was okay. That was okay because it was a twist, but those are always good. It was just, I knew what was going on, but it was okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I wanted to start with reading this. I got some comments, and somebody mentioned, she said, I'm very interested in knowing, I understood everyone's role last night, but what was the reason for your ex-husband? Was it supposed to be an example of a relationship that survived trauma bonding? Or if so, it still looks very much unhealed. And I think in my mind, because I've been working, it's been 13 years since we divorced. And in my mind, I thought that we were both individually on a path of healing. I know I've been working on myself. I've gone through counseling. I've spent a lot of time analyzing my past and taking responsibility for what I brought to the relationship. And now understanding why, understanding where my brokenness comes from or came from. So I still have a lot of work to do, but I'm not blaming anybody, you know, but for whatever reason, he still wanted to blame me. And he thinks I should not have left the marriage, but it was a very unhealthy relationship. And I needed to get out. I need to get out. And I know it's not possible for us ever to come together again. I would like to be friends, but that's not even possible because
You know
he's
what?
not in the place.
You know what? I'm sorry, Shar. You know, one thing about when you leave, I'm not saying your husband's narcissistic at all, but I know who I am, right? Therapy and diagnosis. When you leave a narcissistic person, it will forever crush their ego, especially when you leave and you're successful. You leave first, you're looking good, you're feeling good. And then when people that you all know together still like you and don't like him, it's everlasting. I dealt with it. And my therapist helped me get through that because I developed anger issues, already had anger issues. But from that, my wife filed divorce, rightfully so, but they never get over it ever until they understand how to process what they did to cause you to want a divorce. And most of them will never process that.
So is it only a narcissistic person that thinks that way, or do you know what I'm saying?
I think I know .com isn't a talk, but it's anybody really. But when a person like myself that has that disorder, it's a blow because I was very egotistical. I was very overbearing. I was very competitive. So when she filed the divorce, it struck me in all of those areas. And so those traits started coming out, the anger, the being, wanting to be vindictive. So for me, it was just consumed me totally. Other people, I don't know. I just know how I react, and not being an empath, I'm not going to react in a good or nice way. And I didn't.
Kevin and Sandra, Leon, you heard his bio. So he has been enlightening people on the journey of narcissism because he's lived it. And so I value what he has to say because, you know, a lot of times people make you feel like you're crazy for thinking that way. And speaking of, did you all want to say anything to what we just said before I moved on? Kevin, you're still muted.
Oh, go for it. Go for it, Sandy.
Well, I just thought that you didn't answer the woman's question. She asked you what the reason was for bringing your ex on, and then you didn't answer that part.
Oh, I actually did. I said, I appreciate your response. Yes, my intentions were to build the conversation on the premise of my failed marriage. I had hoped he had grown and was able to have an honest conversation, but unfortunately, he hasn't been working on himself. He's stuck and it shows. I care about him. And I care about him and his well-being, and I'm hopeful he will begin the work. He is the father of my children, so my heart still cares. Thanks for watching.
Okay, I missed that part.
Yeah, I didn't read it.
That was my fault. I jumped in and then she didn't. She said
No.
it, but I off. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, I wanted to chime in on that opening because I think it's important to realize that healing is not on any timetable, and it can happen in an instant, but that instant might happen 15 years from now. And it might just all happen all at once. And, you know, I've we've heard the cliche, time heals all wounds. Not really. It's not time that heals. It's the insight. It's the revelation. And as you said, it's realizing that there has been pain and then feeling it and then allowing that feeling and then coming to some kind of either a resolution or acceptance of it or a relief from it. Because it could be relief too. It could just be like, I'm just so glad that's over. It may not necessarily be, I accept it. It just might be, I'm just so glad I'm done. So, I want to also point out that the narcissist needs healing. And as much as we vilify the narcissist is a narcissist because of a defense. It's a protection.
That's right.
The false
Yes.
self wants to protect the very tender ego and will do anything to protect it. And that goes for all of us. It just shows up in different ways for the narcissist. So, it's healing across the board that we're after when we have these conversations.
That's right.
And Coach K, I'm sorry,
No, go on.
he's right about everything he said. The way I was living, the discard, the ghosting, the silent treatment, I was doing this stuff in the 80s and 90s. And two exes asked me to start doing videos about my narcissism last year. Prior to that, I wasn't going to do it. I failed therapy like 3 times. I talked to psychiatrists, psychotherapists, didn't even know what a psychotherapist was. And he's right, the healing, my healing didn't start. People think, well, you go into therapy and you're in there for 6 months, a year, and you're healed, you're good. No, that's not even in the beginning. That's like the interim, right?
Right.
Beginning. And so what do you do when you come out of therapy? Okay. Do you go back to hurting people, harming people? Do you go back to cheating? Because narcissism, to me, the things that I was doing was an addiction for me. I got a thrill out of gaslighting. I got a thrill out of ghosting. I got a thrill out of lying. I got a thrill out of cheating. That thrill superseded love and caring and being passionate about a relationship and a marriage. It superseded us. So just because I tell people, I failed therapy a few times. And when I finally sat down, it was with a therapist that I can connect to. And as soon as I walked in the office, she said, I'm not going to hurt you. And that's when my guard dropped. And because I'm always thinking somebody's going to hurt me, preferably females or mainly females, because that's who I was hurting. So my guard was up. And I'm here in this office with a white lady and my therapist, and I went in there guarded. I didn't even know that I was guarded, but I was. And when she said that, I let my guard down a little bit. And as we spoke, and it was like weekly, and going in there, people don't know that when you go into therapy, it's hard, it's tough, because I had to face Leon. She was a person that challenged me. I allowed other women to challenge me. When they did, boom, I was gone. Either lie or I wanted to be the controlling and domineering type of person in a relationship. But when I was able to open myself up to her, somebody I didn't know, a stranger that was educated on, personality disorders, I felt okay to open up to her. And then now I'm opening up, and now I'm like, oh, I get it now. I understand. Now I can admit to those things. I wasn't admitting anything to any woman for my entire life. I was like, I'll either lie or I'll ghost, I'll leave, I'll disappear, But he's right. The therapy it could be 10 years later from me. Of course, it started happening at 46 years old. But from age 18 to 46, there was no therapy. I should have been in therapy at 6 years old because of molested in my parents' divorce. So we could say I didn't have therapy from age 6 to 46, 40 years. So I damaged a lot of people.
Wow. Wow. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Something Kevin said was, and the question, there was something that stated about narcissism. Do only narcissists do this? No. Most people have narcissistic features. We are at 4 years old, we have a right to be a narcissist. Mommy is supposed to cook for us. Mommy is supposed to anticipate our needs. Mommy is supposed to think ahead and know that I'm tired and need to be having a nap. But for some kids, that doesn't go away. And they get used to being, how do I put it, catered to in such a way that they expect the entire adult world to do that or ad nauseum. And until they understand that they get more power out of self-care and the empowerment of your own self, that it's hard to move them from the expectations. It's kind of like, for me, stripping away the singular lens from a person who is highly narcissistic to expanding the lens to create a visual that they can begin to see what it might be like to be the other person. And up to then, they can't, because their ego needs and their body needs, that only theirs matter. And so why should I care about my neighbor? Why should I care about the little kid sitting next to me in the sandbox? Those things come later. It's usually the adolescent years, and that's just the beginning of it. The idea that other people want to win once in a while. You know, if you're very competitive and you want to win the game and you're aggressive and you do this. I think I was finally about 45 before I realized, oh, the other person wants to win once in a while. Their winning is not a personal attack against me. This is just them trying to achieve the same place in a card game or something like that. I was in therapy for 9 years before the pieces started to click. There was a sort of a tumbler effect. Slow peeling, slow to trust, because that's what I didn't have in my home. Back to the Freudian, or even the Piaget, trust versus mistrust. A child gets it by the time they're 2. And if the world is a dangerous place, they don't trust very well, and trust leads to everything else. So these discussions to me are fascinating because I've dealt with some pretty unhealthy people. I've watched them reach a point and then leave therapy. You call it failed therapy. I call it got too close and too hot, and then we'll go back and retreat and figure out when they want to come back. I always tell my clients that this is you decide when we start, you decide when we end. You're in absolute control. It's up to you if you want to be here.
You know, Doc, right.
Okay, I'm done.
When Doc says that, my therapist told me, you don't take this seriously, huh? And I had the nerve to get pissed because they called me out. And she's right. It's up to us when we start and end. So I would walk in their offices smelling like smoke, with these little straws in my mouth, just very disrespectful. Not on purpose, but it was regardless, it was disrespectful because I didn't want to be there. I was a senior person leader, and I didn't think there was anything wrong with me. And I'm like, why do I have to be here? Why should I? What about everybody else? How come they're not coming in here? You know, how come your office is not flooded with other people? I'm doing good. I'm Sailor of the Year. I'm leading people. I'm Recruiter of the Year, right? I just got advanced. I was ranked #1. These people should be in here. They had and that ate me. Oh, it ate me up because I thought I was like the greatest thing to the Navy. I'm like, how can I be in this office with you? And I would say that to him, but I could sit down and talk to Doc Cummins because I like real therapists, real people to call me out, right? It hurt. She's right. It hurt. Oh, it hurt my flesh. I'm like, I would be in her office like I could feel my skin burning, literally burning. And she wouldn't let up. She wouldn't let up. And I'm like, I walk out, I'll be back. You don't have to come back, Mr. Walker, because you don't take this serious. And it's like, ooh, it was like a failure in my mind. So I wasn't used to failing. Failing hurt too bad. Failure is like embarrassment to me. And so I would go back the next week, like, dude, it was like, I walk in with an attitude thinking I'm going to like put her down. She, you know, it's not that she, but it was like, I'm trying to affect her before she affects me, but it never worked, you know? And so I had to over time, get used to that. You grow a little more, like Doc said, you grow and you grow and you grow, you stay in there. It's up to you when you start and end. So I found confident in going in there finally, because there was no confidence in anybody else talking to me about my issues because I didn't tell anybody, but they knew something was wrong with me. But I wasn't going to admit that. I'm like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm the greatest guy that ever happened to you. I'm Sailor Year, I'm Recruiter Year, I'm ranked #1, I'm getting all these jobs.
That's a nice fantasy. It's a great fantasy. We could all say that about ourselves if the moment was presented correctly. The trouble is that if you have 2 of those people in the room, who gives in and says, well, you're right, you are the smartest, you are the brightest, you are the most handsome, you are the most beautiful, who's going to give in and say that to you? You have to have a knowing within yourself that you have the right to be on the planet, that you have the right to occupy your 4 squares of the universe, just like everybody else does, and that you have as much value as the next person, not more than, just as much. Regardless of disability, skin color, height, weight, personality, difficulty, you still have basic human rights. And until the client can feel relaxed enough about that the therapist is not sitting there pigeonholing, because everybody's different. Everybody responds to the universe differently. And I had the most brilliant sociology professor at UCSB who said that animals adapt more quickly than humans because they have to. If you look at just the coronavirus, the reason it kept mutating is because it knew it was headed on a death course. So they mutated to get into other people and change their makeup. We take forever. I mean, I don't know what we still have a wisdom teeth, and I don't remember if we've ever used them. But the thing is that he said something really powerful, and that is that perception is everything. If you think that you are being harmed by someone else, it's real for you. Who am I to say, you're nuts. You need to grow up. You need to do this or whatever. It's just, that's your perception. And until you can change the perception, you can't change the feeling because they're connected. If you see someone that you love, your insides light up. You want to go embrace them. You feel all of those loving emotions. If you see someone you hate, you're ready for a fight. And it's all about perceived danger, perceived enemy. And he said the basic premise of life is that you are trying to survive. Survival is everything. And when your ego is threatened, the sense of self is threatened, and it feels like a death.
Mm.
It
So
hurts.
Mhm.
it hurts like hell. So, but the thing is to discern the difference between the Bengal tiger that's coming up the street that can eat you alive, and that's a real danger, and the perceived danger where you imagine that this person is out to get you. And whatever cues they're sending you to give you that impression, it's incumbent upon each of us to say, when you looked at me kind of cross-eyed, I felt like you were judging me. Is that what you are doing? There's an interrupt that you can impose to help yourself adjust the perception so that you can feel safe again. I mean, this is years and years of work and study. I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. You know it within yourself because you've been seeking that sort of sense of safety and wholeness. But when you have that, you can relax. I watch it. I'm a musician too, and I watch it in the people who are really very skilled and capable. They're as generous as anybody I've ever known. It's the ones that are fighting to get there that have the most attitude and the most brusqueness. There's no magic cure for narcissism. There are empaths who will try to help, but after a while, the empath just gets exhausted or they die from the experience. So,
You know what?
Doc, you bring up
this is,
something.
go ahead, Kevin.
Well, it's something that you were saying about the response. It's something also good to bring forward for listeners that so often, especially in our talks about trauma, we talk about the events and what caused it. But what we know now from research is it's not so much the event, it is how we respond to the event. And this is why, and I'm pretty sure all of us have seen something like this, where we see people who grew up in the same house, experience some of the same traumas, at least in theory, because if the parents were the same, they tend to treat everybody with the same kind of treatment, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll see one person come out of that household and thrive, and another person come away with some type of trauma, some type of ongoing disorder, some kind of ongoing baggage that they're carrying with them for the rest of their lives. Well, what's the difference? And it really comes down to what tools they had when they experienced the trauma to interrupt and close that gap between their trigger and them making more meaning out of that than what the other person did. And so one person can experience the same thing.
If I was 3 years old when I was crawling around on the floor and my mother was in her bedroom, and I picked up a bobby pin off the floor and I put it in a socket. and it knocked me across the room.
Hmm.
And of course I cried because it hurt. My mother came running out. She didn't pick me up and embrace me and hug me. She yelled at me. I was just 3. So things calmed down. She puts me down on the floor. She goes back to the room and I'm crawling around and I found another bobby pin. And I did it again.
No way.
This time I got burnt because the chair. So I had to be taken to a doctor. That is my first real memory, that moment. Now that was a trauma. It didn't kill me. It could have. I don't put bobby pins in the sockets anymore. But how I processed it, pain was not from the event itself. It was from somebody not appreciating that this could be really scary. And I grew up very frightened. And frightened people do weird shit. They just do. They process differently. They don't feel confident. And so I can't lump them all together. There's so many factors that go into someone's need to be recognized, honored, valued, and they want to be the king of the hill all the time. I don't care whether it's a relationship or a job, board game. They just want to be better than everyone else. Well, we've got 300 million people just in this country. Imagine if all 300 million are on the same path. There's not enough space for everybody to be at the top. So learning that, being just a regular person with no particular extra talents, you're decent sometimes, not so decent other times, accept the fullness of the human state, which is sometimes we're irritable as hell. Sometimes we want when we want it. And we want it now. Sometimes we're 4, sometimes we're 34, and sometimes we're whatever age we are now. But we don't know how to be in the future. We only know what we've been. So revisiting 4 is really easy. You can become a 4-year-old in a second. Yes, Lynn, go ahead.
To speak on Doc Cummings, and then Coach KJ, I'll do Doc Cummings first. Narcissistic people have a way of distorting people's perception by way of gaslighting and ghosting. I say that because when you ghost someone, it's abrupt, okay? The love bombing distorts their perception because it changes what they may have heard about me. And then we're dating and all these beautiful things are happening, 30 days, 60 days, and all of a sudden, I ghost. The love bombing, then the ghosting, and then the gaslighting as far as talking to her, Leon, what happened? Where did you go? Or well, you said, you weren't ready for a relationship, all these other things. It all ties into one another. And so her perception is distorted because she's like, she knows she knew better, but she thought she knew better, but then she didn't, and she's gonna give me a chance, but then all of a sudden, boom, I show her who I really am after 3 months and I'm gone.
Wow.
Or cheating or whatever it is. So narcissistic people have a way of doing that. It's not like they go out and on purpose to disrupt or twist somebody's perception around of them. We want you to look at me as like being great, the best man that you ever had. So it's like, well, yeah, he is, but it's always that but. But I tell people, pay more attention to the doubt and not the benefit. I gave Leon the benefit of the doubt. You screwed up when you gave me the benefit. And then when you didn't pay attention to the doubt, that's when your perception started being distorted because of me. Now,
real quick, Leon, don't lose your thought that you're going to ask Kevin. But were you different in relationships that were just casual versus your marriage, or was it pretty much the same behavior?
Well, yeah, it was. So I had to. My wife knew I wasn't any good. She knew. After a while, when you go into a relationship and you cheat, and then it's a marriage and you have children, but you cheated, whether it was being engaged or married, you still cheated. You cheat once, you cheat a million times. The person's going to see you the same way. So the other women, I chose women that were lesser than I was, the path of least resistance, that weren't going to challenge me, that didn't question me, that had low self-esteem and no confidence. So she's not going to really say anything about me having other women. In fact, I told a few of them that there were other women involved. And so if you find a woman that you know and feels and sees that she needs you, she's not going to give up on you regardless of what you do. I wasn't physically violent, but I was verbally abusive, and being verbally abusive that led to being mentally abusive. Okay, so those 3 or 4, that's why I talk about triangulation. It's easy to triangulate when you have women that are lower caliber. I don't want to put women down, but I knew what they were, what they weren't, what they had, what they needed, what they didn't have. And I had to go to the women that didn't have what I had. You know, they weren't making as much money as I was making. They needed help. They didn't have their own apartment. They didn't have their own car. So already going to those relationships up, right? But those women were easy for me to, and a lady called me on the radio station. She said, "You're a predator." And it burned when she said that. It hurt, but she was right. And my ex-wife was more mature. She had character, morals, and integrity, which I didn't have. And so, but I married her. She was pretty. She had her degree. She didn't have any children. She had a wholesome family. Her parents were still married, and I was jealous of those things. And so, even though when I met her, I had other women, I still was dating her, and I decided to marry her to see if I can change my ways. Therapy, it's not. You're not going to change your way. It's not going to happen. It's impossible.
How are things different now?
Things are different now because through therapy, I have clarity, awareness. I'm more receptive. I understand to listen before I react. If I react, I don't want to react out of anger. I have to understand that I'm wrong. I was wrong in this situation, whatever it is. It could be tomorrow or yesterday. And I learned that it feels better to admit my faults, right? My shortcomings, as opposed to blocking them and pushing them away and not bettering myself. Because when I was told that I was this, I was that, I wasn't good, I'm blah, 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 it just hurt so bad. Instead of facing it, I ran. So I had avoidance issues, escapism, emotionally detached. And so I didn't want to face my fears of being that little boy that didn't have confidence and low self-esteem, the little boy that was peeing in the bed, that was hurt because his mom discarded him. A few months ago, my sister told me that, my mother doted on me, and I was like, really? But she did. And so I got away with a lot. So I expect to get away with a lot in my relationships. But speaking to Coach KJ, my trauma started when I was 5 and my female cousins molested me. So I had anger issues early on. And then I became afraid of girls. And then my uncle started touching me. So my anger issues just went deeper and deeper. And then I became afraid of the men in my life that's supposed to love and protect me. So he's right. The trauma starts, and then you got to find a way. Some people become an empath, right? Some people, like Doc said, at 4 or 5, we have those narcissistic traits. I kept mine and just kept going. I didn't get any better.
And that's
Because
funny
you didn't
that you
see
bring.
any percentage.
What did you say, Sandy? Say that
He
again?
didn't see any percentage. We often weigh the benefits and the lack of benefits in choices that we make. So for you, there was no percentage in trusting those people. There was no percentage in you considering others' feelings. And so you just charged ahead like a bull in a china closet, as it were. And that's a tough thing to overcome, especially if you're in the habit of doing it.
Oh, in the habit, like you said, she's right. When you're in the habit, it's a tough thing to do, first of all. But when you're in the habit, that became my norm. Cheating became addicted to porn became my norm. Ghostlighting became my norm. Love bombing became my norm. Like Doc said earlier, I was doing these things as a kid, but didn't realize it, right? The cheating, the gaslighting. And then when you become an adult, and then I joined the Navy and I became a whore. So it became my norm. It became what I was used to. It became what I was accustomed to. And I also saw myself as winning and not losing. So why should I change and go be this nice person? This ain't gonna happen, because that means I'm
You're
losing.
getting reinforced by the other guys that you could best. There's a lot of factors that go into this. But that same instructor who talked about the Bengal tiger said that humans in particular are pretty comfortable with their habits. We know where things are. We grab the toothbrush from the same location. But, I don't know if you've ever done this, but my dad had some hair cream in the cabinet and I didn't look. And I grabbed the tube and I was brushing my teeth with Brill cream. And then you have the shock. You have cognitive dissonance is what they call it. if you pick up somebody else's cup of coffee and you don't take sugar and they've got sugar and you're like this, we have to adjust quickly, and it screws our mind up. But he said the habitual behavior makes us, it's shorthand for getting through the day. We get up,
Would you
we get dressed.
say that's safety? Would you say that's
Well,
it's the creation of safety through those habits? Like comfort is safety in that.
And so when old people, when they're in their home and the daughter wants to move them into another place, and mom is freaking out, I won't know where my things are. That's what they call the container.
Mm-hmm.
Moving people's stuff around is when you start messing around with that's their container. But he said that people get so wedded to their habits, but they are changeable. He said it's very difficult because he gave the example of the stick shift car. He said, we know that the clutch is over here and the brake is over here and the gas pedal's over there. If car manufacturers decided tomorrow to move those three around, we would adapt. And as long as there's no stress, we would continue adapting. The moment of stress comes and we revert back to the original way of being. And that's what makes conscious change so difficult, because you have to be diligent and you have to be observant all the time. So it's a hard job.
It is.
Sometimes people get in the middle of change and they go, fuck it, I've had enough. I can't do this. Or they'll go away for a while and then they'll come back because they recognize there's been progress.
Right.
So I think if you were to try to reframe your failures as your initial attempts and your time for adjusting to the new things you were learning about yourself, it would be a little bit softer landing. That's all I was trying to say.
Yeah,
That's
Right.
good advice for anybody going through a change.
that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's
Kevin.
Mandy,
That's right.
that rings loud. Go ahead, Coach KJ. I don't want to cut you off.
No, just singular comment.
My therapist told me, and I looked at her like she was crap. I would walk out of therapy with my neck on fire. I just felt the hair on my neck and my arm just like, and I said, just come on, man, just go back the next week. Because I was very cocky and arrogant and self-centered. I was like, it hurts. So she told me, she said, next week, Mr. Walker, when you come in, we're going to talk about your cognitive skills. And I looked at her like, she said, because you can't make a good decision based off your gut instinct. I didn't even know that. Had no clue. And I didn't even know what she was saying until the next week I went in there. And that's why I was dealing with fight or flight. When I get nervous, when it's a decision I have to make, a good decision, a mature decision, I couldn't do it because I wasn't accustomed to doing that. I was used to doing what I wanted to do when I want to do and say what I want to say when I want to say it. And those are decisions based on, a group of people that I was leading in the military.
Mhm.
Mature decision in a relationship about love and caring and all of that. Oh no, I couldn't. I would.
Way
in my-
easier to be impulsive. Impulse is way much easier, right? The
Right.
itch,
Hey,
you have an itch, you want to scratch it. That's
Right.
whatever the itch is.
Yeah.
Um,
Wait, Sandy, hold on one minute. Leon, how long did your therapy last?
A year. So
1 year?
when the first 3 months was back in the 80s, I was 22 years old and I was embarrassed and I didn't tell anybody. And I love the Navy so much that when I found out what was wrong with me, I thought I was crazy. And then before I went into Navy, people used to tell me that my mother was crazy. They teased me about my mother. And so here I am, 4 years in the Navy, ready to re-enlist. And I get this diagnosis and I'm like, man, I'm crazy at 22. But
Literally, I mean, what was the actual diagnosis?
what do you mean?
Crazy is not a diagnosis. Crazy behavior might be something aberrant or different than, or not the same as most people. So what do you mean by crazy?
So what I meant by that is when they call I didn't know what to call narcissism. Narcissistic personality disorder was the diagnosis. Right. But I didn't know. So you're hearing it that young, right? It's like, after people call your mom crazy, right? And then you sit with a doctor, although you hear overt narcissism, you hear all these things. I heard crazy, like it's something wrong with me, And so
Okay. So your behavior was, or your response to it was based on your perception. Again, back to that same thing. So when you're talking about thinking, thinking is in itself a behavior.
Right.
So if you recognize that your thinking goes distorted first and then the behavior comes second, if you can rein in the thinking, you can rein in the behavior.
Right. So I couldn't do that, Doc. So thinking came first, right? I'm crazy. My next behavior was I got to get out of here. So I left the Navy, right? That was my behavior to ghost, to avoid, right? And so I got out of the Navy, and I was joining the Navy to do 20 years to impress my parents, make my parents proud. But thinking first, I'm crazy. I got to go. Get out of here. Leaving the Navy. And so I left the Navy for 77 days and I went back, right? I did go back in and I stayed for another 28 years. So that gave me 32 years. And so, yeah, it was like that behavior, the cognitive skills, everything was off. I'm talking at 46 years old when I started again, 46, 7. And it hurt to hear that. I'm like, I'm a senior leader in the Navy, Doc. How can I have cognitive skills issues? You know, it did not make sense.
Somebody asked, I think this is for you, Leon. There was something you were asking or saying, Antoinette. She said, you haven't been dating. Is that a question? I don't know if she's still on.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a question. It's just an interesting way to.
Yeah.
Oh, no. So somebody asked me that the other day. I'm ready to date, but I don't date like as a sport anymore. Dating to me was like, one night stands, go to dinner, one night stand, go to breakfast, starting the love bombing all over again. And I don't want to do that anymore. When I was doing what I was doing as a narcissist, I had a lot of heart, a lot of courage, and I had a lot of nerve, right? And through prayer, through therapy first, through talk therapy, okay? And open myself up to many people, many mature men and women and God, and wanting to do right and do better. I found it easier to not jump out there and date because I felt like I wasn't ready. Now I feel like I am ready because, I always had these anger issues and lack of patience, but I have to be more reserved in reacting and thinking and understanding. And so before it wasn't like the empathy, like I understand how you feel. Well, I don't feel that way, empathy, I understand how I feel. Others have felt that way. I felt that way, but I was blocking that out. And so I'm more understanding of her, what she wants, what she needs, her desires. I like to communicate now instead of taking turns talking. Before, it was like we're taking turns talking, but I had to win every argument. And if I didn't, I would get super pissed. And if I get pissed, I'm gonna go drink, smoke, and flirt with somebody to make myself feel better about losing an argument, but at the same time hurting her without her knowing it or making her think that I was cheating. So that did me well in my mind. It wasn't right, but I did it.
So, Antoinette, 1 minute. Antoinette followed up with, I guess she's answering why she asked that question. The doc asked you, what have you changed? Because you were a serial dater.
Right.
So I don't know, Antoinette, did he answer your question?
So, right. So my thing is, what I've changed is the fact that thinking about greed and lust, how it consumed me, right? Wanting an abundance of women, not caring about having all those women. So here's the thing that I learned also in therapy. When you hurt somebody, right, whether it's your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, or kid, let's say I hurt my wife. There are second and third and fourth orders of effect that come with that. I never processed me hurting my wife's mother and father and brother. I never processed hurting my girlfriend's sister and aunt. It's like, I hurt my girlfriend, oh, no big deal. She'll get over it. I hurt you because you made me hurt you, right? I'm flirting because you're not giving me these things at home. But I wasn't giving her anything. So the relationships were always lopsided in one way because of me, right? It's because I didn't know how to hold hands. I didn't know how to cuddle. I didn't know how to love. I didn't feel love. I say it, but there was nothing behind it. There was no intent behind it. So I've always starved women, everyone that I've been with. In the beginning, they were full. They were happy. But in about 3 months, it's going away. I don't know what to do to maintain all this stuff that I'm showing, because now 90 days later, I don't feel it anymore. It's just gone. It's like, Leon, what happened? Where did you go? And that was ghosting in the 80s. I didn't want to face the problems that I was putting on her. I didn't want to face that I was unable to love, to care, and to carry out a long-standing relationship. I just couldn't do it.
So quick. Okay, we spent a lot of time about the narcissist, right? It takes two to make a relationship, whether good or bad. But so the last show, we know that there are different levels to narcissism, but the question was, is intense empathy a disorder as well? Think on it. You know what I'm saying? Because
You mean someone who refuses to recognize that the individual in front of them is not what they say they are and keeps trying over and over to make it better? I think that's true for most women because of the way in which they were raised in the home, that their job was to take care of the guy. And if he's not happy, it's her fault. And that's why many women were beaten and sexually violated, even inside of a marriage, and kids were getting harmed, and the mother stayed because of the financial security. I don't think that's so much an illness as a dread fear. It's dread fear that they won't be able to feed their kids. And in truth, treating couples where there is abuse, it's easier to cure the abuser than the abused person. But the abused person doesn't hurt the other.
Wait, can I just process what you just said? It's easier to cure the abuser than
it is the abused. Because at some level, the abused person feels that they deserve the abuse from conditioning, from habit, from a lifetime of being treated that way. So getting them to recognize, you have a self, you have the right to say, stop, don't do this to me. You can't do this. X is going to happen. But then the threats would come greater if the person is already abusive. It's always a loaded cannon. So we in our training were taught to have the person prepare the bag of departure with all of the right things in it, the clothing, extra money, and just to have it ready. Comes the day when they're ready to go. And then all I have to do is pick up the bag and go. It's very difficult when you have no self-esteem to believe that your life is going to be any different than what it is. It's also true that even if you think you're healthy and you're suffering from a major personality disorder, that there's anything wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me. It's everybody else.
Yep.
It's their fault that I'm this way. Well, it takes your decision away from you. And that thinking is where the distortion really starts. If you have no input to how you behave, then how did you start to be that way? Somebody trained you from early on, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and you formed opinions about how you were supposed to behave. And you learn it in church, you learn it in the home. You learned if you take the extra cookie off the plate, you're going to get smacked. So you stop taking the cookie. And if you start to deprive yourself of ordinary things as a child, you'll make up for it in adulthood. And what's more, you will believe that when you have your kids, that you're beating the crap out of them because they didn't sweep the floor. It's for their own good. I mean, there's so much literature on this that it's staggering. People don't consciously want to hurt other people. Now, they don't start out that way. Something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And KJ probably has more on this than I do, but I'm just trying to bring it together and answer Shar's question at the same time.
Yeah. More, but I'll ride what you're saying because it's I think especially in the Black community, our feelings about discipline for children is that reinforcement loop. And unless, at some point we read a book or we see a show and we get some new information and that we could parent differently, we parent with the same sense of discipline and punishment and protection because we're protecting our kids from unnecessary exposure in a white world. All those things serve to perpetuate the traumas that may be originated inside the family, but now we've systematized them because of our parenting. But I also wanted to say
is documented. Multi-generational abuse is documented. Alice,
I want Kevin to finish your thought because you were going
to the point about the the empath that can't stop empathing.
Yeah.
There is an additional term. We talk about fight or flight. We've added on a term called fawning. And I think that speaks to this behavior as well. That we can fight, put up our dukes and try to rebel. We could, freeze, run, and go into some kind of a paralysis, or we play into what is going on, because that is also a safety moment. We can create safety by saying, I'm not a threat to you. I'll do everything you want me to do, right? Yeah. And so it creates, again, the situation for the narcissist to continue to take advantage, because out of fear and survival, they decide to fawn. And again, those are paths that any individual could take. They could go any one of those directions in that situation.
I remember the day that my therapist said to me, you should go to one of those groups for enablers, CODA. Like, you should go to a CODA meeting. And I said, what for? Codependent. I didn't even understand at that time. She said, well, I just think you ought to check it out. I was very resistant at that time. But ultimately, I would learn about why she suggested that to me, because I was one of the enablers. And but I was a resentful enabler. I would do it, but I'd be pissed. And the thing is, you're just trying to find balance. All of us want balance. Right. We want to know when we come home, our loved ones are there, that we can count on them when we're tired to take care of us, that when we're sick, and we can do the same for them, that there's a quid pro quo going on, even if it hasn't been stated in a contract. It's because it's the care factor within a relationship. I care about you, and I'm willing to do for you because I love you. Yeah. And but the way you were speaking earlier didn't sound a whole lot like there was much love engaged in your connection with women. It was more about what you could get for yourself. And if she started to want more, then you were gone.
So on that, Doc, empaths are accustomed to working hard. So I knew being a woman, she doesn't know this yet. But eventually she's gonna realize I have to work hard. And that becomes, I think, some type of trait of theirs, because they've been working hard all their lives. If an empath meets a man that she can't work hard on, she's not going to love him. She's going to love him naturally, but she's not going to be deeply attracted to him. Empath women were deeply attracted to me because they have to do a lot of work on me. And so that feeds into their loving ways, caring ways, giving ways, right? And so it's like,
it's a secondary gain.
Is it a part of control?
Then he'll treat me better.
Do you think that's a part of? Do you think on the empath side, do you think it's a form of control as well?
And
no, it's the protection. They're protecting the kids. Have you ever heard of the Cartman drama triangle?
My favorite model.
Yeah, it's there's a perpetrator, a victim, and a rescuer. The perpetrator hurts the victim. The rescuer comes in to save the victim and winds up being the perpetrator on the original perpetrator. And it goes around and around and around.
Oh my God.
The triangle is the most stable structure in the universe. So if you keep triangling, nobody's functioning separately. And so what happens, everybody changes position. The victim becomes the new rescuer. The perpetrator becomes the victim, and it's the craziest circle. And you can watch it play out. If you watch families and how they communicate, and you see this stuff going on, there's one kid in the family that's always sticking up for the little one, or for a favorite sibling. And nobody's developing and evolving healthily within this family structure, with your own ego structure, not built on what mom and dad say, but what you come to know about you. I remember one day my therapist asked me, "Who are you?" And I said, "What the hell kind of question is that? I'm sitting right here." And she says, No. What do you stand for? Nobody in my life I was in my 40s. had ever asked me that. So I went, I have no idea. Why do you care? So then it became the process of writing down the things that I believed in and where the origin of that came from. My political beliefs, my spiritual beliefs, what kind of music I liked, what food I like to eat. I mean, it's enormous. And the influence of the parental guide is so enormous that we think that we're stuck in it for life. You can declare independence, but it's tough. I was 49 before I finally asserted to my dad. We got in a discussion about something, and we were different points of view. And I looked at his face turn in a way that made me realize he was mad at me for disagreeing with him. And I said, you know, Dad, the older I get, as I approach 50, I realize that sometimes we have a different point of view, and that's okay. And his face changed immediately. He no longer saw me as the child. I had to take my adulthood. And adulthood means you know who you are and that you can stand up against anybody's argument and they can still hold it and you can walk away.
Right.
You don't, two people can be in the same room with completely different views and stay safe. It's not necessary to annihilate them because they're different.
Exactly.
And
Sandy,
that's a huge journey.
it is.
It's
Sandy, you were were you once diagnosed a narcissist?
No, I was, what did she call me? I was basically what did I say earlier? She said I was a codependent. I was more the empathic type and I took a lot, but I was always whining about it.
Oh, okay.
I could whine about things, but I would never affect something that would shift how people interacted with me. And I was 70. And when I turned 70, this woman was kind of up in my business all the time, telling me what to do. She was about 80. And one day she said just one more thing too much. And I thought to myself, I'm 70 years old. I shouldn't have to put up with this anymore. So I said, you know, you need to stop. She said, what do you mean? I said, you need to stop doing this. And she said, why? I said, because it bothers me. And I take responsibility for never having told you this, but you need to know that if you do it from here out, I know that you're deciding to hurt me. That's a different thing, because now you consciously know. And so she persisted. I said, if you say it one more time, I will have you 86th from this performance. She said, you can't do that. I said, watch me. That was a huge shift from me just taking it and taking it and taking it, because there's a point at which in performance, you start to feel like a whore. People take advantage of you. They say things. They expect things from you that you wouldn't have to do in any other profession. But I had never stood up for myself. I kept waiting for somebody to rescue me. And finally, one day I said, there's nobody there. I got to do it for myself. And I was bummed about it.
Mm-hmm.
But once I did it, then in newer relationships, you can start establishing the boundaries sooner. Like, okay, you know, I don't like it when you do that. I need you to stop that. If we're going to continue in a relationship, whether it's a friendship or just a buddy, when they're violating your sensibilities, if you don't speak to it in a way that they can hear it, then they're not going to stop.
Right.
So it's all part of the whole thing. I said this subject is so full of little pieces that once you get them all and they start to gel inside your head, and that happens at some magic point, like you said,
right?
It could be in an instant when you go, huh, it's the aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be darned. I didn't know that could happen. It's amazing how quick.
Let me segue. Thanks, Sandy.
Absolutely.
Leon. So, okay, we're talking about
Empaths.
Okay, but I'm talking about empaths, narcissists who have been injured, you know, by their past traumas and reasons why they perform the way they do. So in order to heal, forgiveness is a big part of it. Forgiving the people that hurt us, forgiving ourselves. Leon, there's a lady that you shared her video, you were mentioning her name, Lucy Liu, is that it? Lucy.
She's
Is it just
on
Lucy?
Lucy, yeah, underscore girl power, I think.
Okay, I want to play a clip because when we're talking about forgiveness in order to heal, apparently she was the empath and she has a lot to say about the narcissist. Tobias. Are you having trouble pulling that video up?
Sound is not sharing. That's what I'm trying to get it to do.
You said it's not sharing?
The sound.
Oh, okay. We'll keep talking until you can get it. Uh-oh, my battery's about to I have to plug my computer in.
You need to release yourself of any anger. Forgive yourself for allowing that person into your space.
Hold on 1 minute.
That forgiveness is going to release our mind, bodies, and souls of all the heaviness that we carry along with their hurt. I don't believe that. I believe we need to release the anger. We don't need to forgive. All forgiveness does is release the people who did us dirty of any responsibility for their wrongdoings. All forgiveness does is let those people right off the hook for the way they did us wrong. You don't need to forgive. You do need to release yourself of any anger. Forgive yourself for allowing that person into your space to hurt your feelings and leave them exactly where you found them, in the dirt, doing people dirty. Not everybody who hurts us cares that they've hurt us, but we're taught that forgiveness is going to release our mind, bodies, and souls of all the heaviness that we carry along with their hurt. I don't believe that. I believe we need to release the anger. We don't need to forgive. All forgiveness does is release the people who did us dirty of any responsibility for their wrongdoings. All forgiveness does is let those people right off the hook for the way they did us wrong. You don't need to forgive. You do need to release yourself of any anger. Forgive yourself for allowing that person into your space to hurt your feelings and leave exactly where you found them, in the dirt, doing people dirty. Not everybody who hurts us
I
cares
don't know
that
why that's repeating. Thank
That's
you,
a loop.
Tobias. It was looping.
You
Thank
have
you.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You have to, so in therapy, forgiveness is a part of therapy. Okay. And so she said, next week, we're going to talk about forgiveness. And I was like, oh, no, we're not. Hell no, because she had already knew my perpetrators. But forgiveness helped me. I agree with what she's saying as far as letting go of the anger, but you have to forgive. If you tell people don't forgive, and it's in the Bible as far as forgiveness, it is. If you tell people not to forgive, they're going to still hold on to something, right? Or I'm not angry anymore, but I didn't forget what you did. But that anger can come back because you may become vindictive. You may want revenge.
That's a survival mechanism, Leon.
Right.
It's just like me with the bobby pin. I learned that that's not healthy. Now, I don't have to forgive a bobby pin, but what I needed was to learn to not do that anymore.
Right.
And once I learned the concept, and I didn't have to worry about bobby pins and sockets. With people, it's different. We have
Right.
we take responsibility for how we allow others to harm us. It doesn't mean, if that means it's forgiven, I have a memory so that I won't fall into that trap with that same person. I have people that have harmed me, and while I don't think about it every day, if I run into them, that's the first thing that's popping up. That's the warning. That's the flag that says, stay away, they're trouble. And maybe that's not healthy, but it's how I survive.
Let me hear from Kevin. Thank you. Let me hear from Kevin.
I like that take on it, Doc, because forgiveness is such a abstract idea. I don't think most people even have the emotional athletics to engage in real forgiveness.
Yeah.
Because it's not even an emotion. It's not, there's no scientific proof of forgiveness. There's no evidence that forgiveness actually happened except that which we interpret in our own lives.
Yes.
So it's such a high concept. It's hard to say, here's what you need to do, forgive somebody. Like, what does that even mean?
Right.
And so when we talk about things like this, I like what she says in that it's the emotions that have been attached to that experience, that if we get rid of those emotions, we move those out through us, not ignore them or deny them, but allow them. No matter what that expression looks like, that allows us to then evaluate without the emotion, because the emotion has now been moved through us. Now we can look at that situation through the eyes of cognitive insight and revelation of, okay, what triggered all of that anger, what gave me all of that experience was this decision to say yes, or this decision not to say no. That's what I'm going to learn from this. So that anger is out of me, and I made a new decision about how I want to be treated in my life. And you forgive yourself in that moment. That kind of like releasing yourself from that blame is a powerful act of forgiveness. But I don't even like to use that word. I'd like to just say, look, give yourself the grace.
Releases. It sort of has a release. It just
What'd you say, Kevin? I didn't hear the last sentence.
Give yourself the grace to realize you made a mistake in saying yes or saying no or not saying no. Make that the decision that you make, and learn from that decision not to allow that to happen to you again, because it's the boundary that protects you, not the forgiveness. The boundary.
That is so powerful, because I can speak from my own experience. That is actually how I've been able to move on. Like, I honestly don't hate my ex. And I guess I want to say I kind of forgiven him in a sense of analyzing what happened to him in his past and understanding his behavior. So when I was with him, also my experience in my past and why I behaved the way I did in the marriage, I could forgive myself and I could literally move on. But like I said, I'm dating myself now. I'm no longer, this is where my problem is. Like, I won't get involved because it's like, I don't trust my decision that I'm gonna gravitate to someone who will love me. I don't know that. I don't even know how to get past that. So the forgiveness part, I'm good with that now. But it's fear, like trusting to love. I won't even say trusting to love again, because I don't know that I even really knew how to love, because I didn't love myself. So now that I'm learning how to love me and I'm knowing my worth, finding that,
So let me suggest something here, because in most of our relationship constructs, we look outside of ourselves. And I like to point people to their own experience as proof of safety. So, and often we don't have boundaries because we don't know how to create safety for ourselves, because we're externalizing it. We think that if we find the right person, we'll be safe.
Hold on 1 minute. Hold on 1 minute, Kevin. Your sound is being interrupted. I don't know what that is.
It's Tobias.
Tobias? Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah.
I didn't want to.
So if we get the right things, we'll be safe. And so if we find the right person, or they treat us a certain way, or they give us this, we'll be safe. But the crux of it is, can we create safety for ourselves? And if we learn what safety feels like for ourselves, we enable ourselves to have a built-in filter for bullshit when it shows up in our lives. So if somebody comes up to me and tries to introduce something that makes me feel unsafe, and I know what safety feels like for me, I can say no, because that is a direct violation of everything that has kept me safe. And even if they start to gaslight me, that's a red flag. I'm starting to question my own judgment here, but I know what makes me safe.
Yeah.
So I'm questioning it. Why? Because of this introduced idea. Nope, I'm not entertaining that idea. So how we regulate ourselves can be the biggest key in how we create healthy relationships, because the health starts not in the relationship. The health starts here.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you so much. Team Graphics, Carol, she said, not forgiving is not excusing the person. We must be careful. Religion also plays a part for some, because it's part of our teaching. Yeah. Thank
Well,
you.
there's a difference between forgiving the person and forgiving the behavior that they created. So for example, look at our penal system. Somebody breaks the law, they go into prison, and forever in life, they have that mark on their back. They're not welcomed into the fold. The Japanese have a thing called reintegrative shaming, where you go to prison, you come out, everything is wiped clean. It's like when you send your kid to the room after they ate too many cookies. You don't hate the kid every day. You learn how to just let them learn from the lesson. We need more of that in our society, where somebody does this wrong or there's been a crime done, where they come out and that sin has been paid for. They've already done the time.
Right.
So that, but we don't have that in interpersonal relationships, a way to say, you know, when you said that, that really pissed me off and that really hurt me, because we don't want to let anybody know that we've been hurt. We want to feel justified to be, you know, this. Emotions are really funny. And I guarantee you that if you see somebody really angry and they're just spewing, there's underneath that anger is something that hurts or something they're afraid of. Fear and or pain cause the anger. The anger is the antidote. And so people are becoming angrier and angrier to assuage all of that stuff. If that makes any sense or doesn't make any sense, please speak to it. I'm just telling you what I've come to know in my limited experience where I live and with the people I'm around. What is
So,
your experience, Leon?
Leon, with you going dating again, is there fear on your part?
The only fear is that she doesn't trust me. And so this is what I get. This is who I am right now. This is where I am. What I did in the past is caught up to me. So I asked for help. I got help. I have therapy, people praying for me, you know. But if she chooses not to be with me, and it happened, a woman said, Leon, I just can't do it. And I'm like, oh, now I get discarded. So this is what I get. My fear is, you know, that happening again and again. And sometimes I feel like God has me hidden in plain sight, you know, because of my past. It's not like karma or punishment. It's like, this is my duty now to stand up, you know, stay well groomed, speak well, but don't expect sex, you know? And so I have to.
Yeah, when you share too soon, that helps to block you from the thing you're seeking. Trust has, in most cases, needs to be earned. So when you have gone consistently for a long time, behaving without anything for her to distrust, and then at some point in a moment of intimacy and talking, you share something about your history, that's a lot easier for them to believe.
I was just about to ask that go down that same line of thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I was gonna get to. So I'm open and transparent. I have no choice now but to, so 2 women put me on this path, 2 women, 2 exes. And so now that I start doing these videos, I'm exposing myself. And at first it was really hard. It was very hard. I would start, stop, do a video, run away, quit. But going down this path, I don't have no choice now but to stand up and be strong and understand that people that are hurt in the past are going to come back around, and it's happened. People that I don't even know, I'm going to hurt and offend by virtue of my videos and triggering the women. It's going to happen. Some men get upset with
you made yourself a public figure where people who knew you from the past can target that. What if you retreated for a while and then your reputation would sort of disappear off of the radar, and then just be the best person you can be? People will see it.
So me facing what I'm putting out there and answering the questions and not running is being the best person that I could possibly be, because I used to run a lot. That was my avoidance issues were consuming me. So I could easily disappear, Doc. I can run just like that. And I tried that, but guess what? Because I've asked God to help me, because I've had people praying for me. When I did run away last year for a whole month, I was still drawn back to it because it was something that I put my heart and my soul and my spirit to, and I prayed about this. And so here I am. This is my duty. I have a debt to society, specifically women and some of the younger men that I misled and hurt while I was training and leading them, right? But this is who I am. This is my payback to give to people that I've hurt, people that I didn't hurt directly or indirectly, right? I'm sorry, I apologize, but I have to put in the work. Saying you're sorry and apologize is not enough. I had to face that these people, like I said, there's second and third order of effects that I hurt when I broke up with my ex-girlfriend, ex-wife. The children, their uncles, their aunts, mother, and fathers, people that I hurt indirectly. So I could just disappear and go away, but that's being a coward. That's ghosting the whole, like my platform, not being transparent, not being real, not being open, not being honest. I don't want to ghost that. It's not that I'm ghosting the people. I'm ghosting what I was put out here to do by people that are connected spiritually through God. And I believe in that. So I can't, you're right, I could run away, but I did. But I kept being pulled back because of my feelings and my emotions didn't want me. I didn't want to run anymore like I was running in the past. So that old guy was running, that was easy. It was easy to ghost women. It was easy to discard and hurt people, but I don't want to do that anymore.
So you're putting yourself out there and letting people know how you behaved, and you're acknowledging that was not, it hurt a lot of people. And it hurt
Right.
you, and there was reasons why, but how are you giving closure to the people who were hurt by you?
So I've had times where women have called me and we talk. I'm talking about women from 20, 30 years ago. Old sailors that I led and cursed out and berated and put down. And yeah, I got to face it. They'll call and say, hey, Leon, this is so-and-so. I'm like, hey, look, bro, hey, man, I was going through some stuff then. I'm sorry. There's no excuse. I apologize, and I was very dysfunctional. I wasn't a great leader. I got in trouble for not being a great leader twice, but I blocked it out. And then I turn around and do something extraordinary the next day and get my glory back, but I still wasn't being the healthy person because I did it to benefit me and not to correct my deficiencies. So people call me from 20, 25, 30 years ago and say, and this lady just told me the other day, said, do you remember when you said this to me? I don't remember. And I said, well, since you said it and you mean it, I probably did say it and I apologize. But I told her, I said 5 years ago, the way you called me, I would have cursed you out.
Right.
As
Right.
wrong as it was by doing what I did. And then she reminded me, I'm still going to make her feel bad about reminding me about me doing something bad to her that I did what.
But
So
to
that's
build
how we know you're growing, is that you're able to acknowledge it without anger.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's still hard, but it doesn't feel as bad. It doesn't burn like my flesh would burn when people would call me out. It used to burn. I can't explain it because people don't know that are not like either really evil or narcissistic, but it doesn't hurt like that anymore. It feels better now. You know what? It feels better now to tell the truth.
Yeah.
It's called guilt. What's the burning is guilt. No, you don't want anybody catching you
Right.
doing something. And so when you have that feeling, you feel the burn of the guilt. And we
Yeah,
have
human
a lot of
nature.
guilt in this culture. But the thing is that with establishing with new people, even if you share your story, one thing that could be reassuring, and I'm not sure that you want to do this or anyone would, is you say, I know that I have a history of this. And I know that I won't do this to you because I have this feeling about you. I have this feeling about you. And I don't see myself ever doing this again because these feelings have replaced all of that. My sense of running.
Yeah, I tell people because people say we can't change.
Right.
But I've had an emotion of, like she said, they have been replaced. I used to have a lot of heart and nerve to do what I was doing. I had a lot of nerve to lie and cheat and steal and deceive, gaslight. I had nerve. I had major nerve. I had a lot of heart. I didn't have any fear doing it. I never had fear of consequences, none. Because if I did get caught, if something happened and I got caught, like Dr. was saying, that guilt, I could replace the next day by doing something, outstanding to her or for my job. And so that guilt will go away. And I talk about that in the video about doing good deeds. The next day I had to do a good deed to make myself feel better about what I did the previous day that was wrong.
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't, that my feelings, those emotions have changed through therapy first. So you have to practice these things, understand and being patient, listening, slow to react, not getting pissed off. Because when I used to get pissed off, mad, it felt good to see people curl up in a ball or cry. I could watch a woman cry and didn't want to have sex with her right after she cried. So I don't like those things. I really don't like those things anymore. And people are like, oh, that's impossible. You can't do it. I wasn't born this way. I was created this way.
And
Here's
Leon,
what I
what have you done in terms, because you developed some skills
Mhm.
now, empirical skills as a like committed narcissist.
Yeah.
As you've undone the root of those behaviors,
Mhm.
have you reappropriated any of those skills? Have you, because to be able to get in front of people on YouTube and do reels and do videos and you're harnessing some of the same emotional capabilities of expression, of articulation in terms of writing what you've done wrong.
Right.
So I'm curious about how much of those things that were used for degradation, how are you reappropriating those things?
So now it's like, I don't know if people believe in karma, right? But I do. And it's like, I don't want to be a liar anymore. I want to actually prove what I'm saying and then stand in my truth and stand in what I'm talking about so that people can understand where I'm coming from and how I got to this point. I don't like push things onto people. And one thing for sure, KJ, I have to understand is that when I say what I say, when I do a video, it's not going to be favorable to a lot of people. Okay. Because it's like, oh, he did this, he did that. You know, how can we sit here and talk about it? Because I never talked about it before, because I always avoided talking about it. So this gives me more confidence in knowing that I can stand in front of people and get my feelings hurt too, and not get upset. If that makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
And so, right. So it was hard. It was very hard because
You're practicing, that's all. You're just
Yeah.
practicing.
Yeah.
You're practicing at how to speak in a way that people receive what you say in a sincere manner. In the space of this video, you've gone from a very stern-faced guy to someone who feels more open to me because you're looking at us in a way that's different. Now, these are cues, these are visual cues that we take in. And I'm seeing a shift in how you're responding to each of us, because somehow, whether intentional or not, we've been able to garner some trust with you.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're the subject of this, but just, you know, when you try to change, the hardest thing about change is this: the people who know you
Yes.
have made their judgment about you, right? And when you start to change, they're going, I don't believe this shit.
Yeah.
And they're telling you, change back. We don't know how to react to you now because you're different. Get the hell out of my sight. And that hurts because now your evolved self is just a fledgling, it's a baby. And it's really hard to hang on to the idea that one day you will be a practicing normal person. Because I went through that. I had a lot of difficulty with interactions with people. I have a vocabulary that would slay a room full of people. I have no trouble with my language skills. They were too good. Rapier sharp. I could sarcasm like nobody's business to keep them from hurting me. But I never understood that the quality of my life could improve in direct proportion to my willingness to be wrong. And I had to know how to be wrong in order to learn and take in something new.
that was hard for me. Like KJ said, when I'm doing these video reels and I'm writing about it, I get challenged. And at first, last year when I first started, I wasn't ready. That's why I tell people, you just can't go through therapy and then come out and be like, oh, I'm good. I wasn't good years after therapy. And so two women say, hey, why don't you start doing these videos? I don't know if they knew what was coming or not, but when it came, straight up, Leon, I hate you. And I'm like, and then another lady's like, you just run a game, you trying to get more supply, you want more women. And I'm like, so I realized that if they had said that stuff years ago, I'd have been like, but I didn't do that. But I felt it, KJ. I felt it coming on. And I controlled it. So I was like, that's the first time I ever really been proud of myself, because I didn't go on Facebook and blow up and Just yesterday, a black guy was like, Leon, grow a pair. Don't come on Facebook complaining. You blah, blah, blah. And I read it and I thought, and I said, I know. So being patient and going back and say, you know what? How did I hurt somebody years ago by saying that to somebody else? So I'm now taking responsibility, but I still feel that anger coming up. Instead of letting it blow out, I take a step back and I'm more patient now and I wait and it goes away.
And you made a different choice.
Yep.
Yeah.
You consciously made a different choice. And your thinking, though reactive, and because we respond to the universe in reactive ways, became more conscious, they're more intentional. Your behaviors are intentionally changing, and it's hard work because you go home exhausted sometimes.
It's hard.
And I want to do a callback on the drama triangle that you brought up, because what you're doing right now is disrupting that triangle of behavior. So you got a persecutor, a victim, a rescuer, and those who are trying to react to your change are like, hey, you're breaking up our system here. You know, you're usually the persecutor. We need you in our system to be our persecutor.
Oh my.
So you stop doing that role, we're going to keep pulling you back over here because that's where we're comfortable relating to you from. And the moment you step outside of that triangle, you are now taking responsibility for your own life, and it makes them have to think about their own life.
And that's so, I'm glad you said that, because I see that I may be helping somebody that's just like me, that but won't admit to it, right? Mm-hmm. Just yesterday, a lady I did a video and she's like, I'm tired of hearing this, blah, blah, blah. She just went off. And I read it twice and I thought, I know I triggered women. I trigger them. It could be my big teeth, my big nose, my bald head, my eyebrows. Women have always, for like 19 months, they've been telling me, KJ, Leon, you look like my ex. You look like my current husband. You look like my abusive son. That's why I snapped on you. And I'm like, it's like, so KJ, I'm not used to going, okay, because being in the military, I got to be strong. And my therapist, when I walk in,
Behavior triggers it. It's not so much what you look like. It's the tone of your voice. It's the behavior that you've become accustomed to. And the macho male syndrome, all of that, Leon, it's really difficult to change all of that. But you can do it in increments. There can be something. I asked people to tell me, what was it about me that made them back up? Because I've started to notice that. I was very intimidating and I didn't want to be. It made me very lonely. And so I started to say, look, I know that I've been kind of reactive in the past. I'm addressing this. Can you help me to learn what I'm doing so that I can stop doing it? And you'd be amazed at how many times people will help you. Well, you know, that look you get on your face. Well, can you show it to me? And it was quite amazing, because then I could see and I could attempt to make my face smile more often. So, when you smiled just once earlier on, and in the last few minutes, your smile has erupted more. That you're really projecting in your visual much more the changed person than your original person.
Because this person now, Doc, feels better than the guy that I was for 32 almost years. Yeah. And when I walked in my therapist's office, I sat down. She said, "You don't have to come in like you the big bad Master Chief." So she mocked.
Okay, so she's on you. And look at that, you're laughing at yourself now.
Yeah, right. But like when KJ asked me that question, how do I reappropriate, or what did you say?
Yeah.
If I do that, if you'd asked me years ago, I'd have been like, oh man, because I wasn't doing it. I wasn't real. It was just doing something to probably get attention. I wasn't doing these videos years ago, but yeah. And so it's like, I like who Leon is now. It feels better, you know, who I am now. Even though like when people come back at me, that was the hardest part, because I was so used to people kissing my butt. Now they like challenge me like, you're not real. You make my skin crawl. You son of a bitch. I can't stand you, Leon. I hate you. You remind me of my husband. You need to go to hell. You shouldn't be dating. Leave us alone. I was like, it was like day after day after day after day. And so I said, wow, I'm still around. But November of last year, I left. I ran away for a month because the onslaught was too much to bear. And I went back and I said, okay, let me try it again. And I said, you know, I can't quit because I'm quitting. I'm quitting on that little boy that was peeing in the bed, that was sucking his thumb, that lost his mom and dad. I'm quitting on a little boy that was homeless. I'm quitting on a little boy that got, molested. I be this guy. So I'm also helping people that are just like me too,
That's right.
And so these women
Absolutely.
closure, I'm helping them, and men that want closure, I'm helping them. This is how you get closure, because if I run away, I'm leaving something undone, and that's not my assignment. I have to complete this.
I love it. I love it. So I have a comment and a question. The comment is, my narcissist runs from me, even jokes on Facebook, but won't face me. I got the courage to say, I need to say some things. Well, he said he will let me know he is available when he's available. It's been 4 months.
He's not available when he said that. He's letting her know that. So the moment she says she accepts it, he said, I'll let you know when I'm available, and she accepts that, he's still winning. He's still in control. She has to stop waiting on an answer for him. No answer is an answer. Believe that, like we always say.
Yes, yes. Another comment. No answer is an answer. Yeah. Woo. Another person said, no one is responsible for someone else's triggers. We have to figure out why we are being triggered and sit with it.
Right.
I have a question. There's 2 questions. Oh, one question. This is for you, Leon. How distant are you from the last woman you have harmed? Distant meaning, when was the last time you used discarding and ignored or ghosting?
So over 14 months ago, my ex broke up with me. And she said she felt like I was pulling back away from her. It was a very long distance relationship, but I was really feeling her. She was well-versed in narcissism. She's in the medical field. And she said my actions didn't match my words. She said I had issues and
So you had what? You had what issues?
Anger issues.
Okay.
She said I have a temper, right? And so I'm thinking like, and then she had nerve to ask me, do I think she's a narcissist? Because she knew. So I'm like, this is not going to work. But to answer the question, 14 months ago, she broke up with me. I didn't have any plans to break up with her, but that's when it happened. So I don't like the ghosting thing. I don't like the lying, the love bombing. I'm getting older. It's not because I want to change, because I'm getting older and my backup is up against the wall and there's no supply. That's the furthest from the truth, because I have women now that email and text me that's 25 years old trying to get with me. I don't do that, right? So be narcissistic to say because I'm not worried about getting a woman. No, that's not the case. I just don't want to live the life that I was living anymore. I don't have the heart, the nerve, the courage, or the nerve, right, to live that life more, to cheat and share with 2 or 3 women, and to lie and hurt somebody else's feelings and emotions. And I just don't. Before, I didn't care. I really didn't care. I'm not saying now I'm full of empathy, no. But before, I was not full of empathy. I knew that. I could like, girl, I could care less. Go ahead and cry, Go date somebody else. I'm not going to treat you like I treat you. Blow them off really easy. So that was my childhood trauma, drama, and neglect and abuse coming back. And fear.
Have you met someone that you recognize as being an earlier version of yourself?
Yes,
Okay. What happens to you when you see them?
My stomach starts to hurt. I get irritated. I look at them like, but I help them. Doc. I do.
Yeah.
And so because the good part about that is because I know where they're going. I know what they're doing, what they're going to do. I know what they're thinking.
And you know that they can't bullshit you.
Right. And so that's why I talk about 3 women that I dated that were Leons. I call them Leonas. It's easy for me to date those women because I already know their agenda. Like maybe a guy like KJ or somebody else, a good, wholesome man that's not familiar with these type of women, or maybe you are, not to disrespect you, nothing like that. But if you get surprised, if you meet a woman and I could be like, yo, KJ, nah. You'd be like, nah, man, you'll wind up getting hurt because I know what she's going to do. You may know. I'm not saying you don't, but for somebody that doesn't know, that's not a narcissist, they don't have a clue that this woman's going to ghost them, gaslight them, love bombing, and then boom. I had a man call me the other day in Dubai that's being treated like this by a woman. I said, man, if I'd have met her, she'd have been easy for me to deal with, easy, because it's just like dealing with myself.
I've had it happen and I didn't see it coming. I thought it was one thing, it was another. It was exactly what you just described.
Yeah.
That's why I asked the question, because I met a gal in the office one day. This is about when I was starting to make the turn in my own life and understand people from their perspective better. And she was behaving so aggressively and disrespectfully to her subordinates. And I was watching her, and the first thing that came to my mind, I said, oh my God, I was just like this. And I am so grateful that she's in my life, because she reminds me of what I never want to be again. Mm-hmm. And so I use those folks as my mirror. The people that are acting out in ways that sometimes our reflexes are still there. The funniest thing about change is that during the time you're being your whatever self, what mode you're operating in, you don't see a need for change. When you try to change, and then you really actually affect change, you suddenly realize you're in no man's land because you don't know how to trust what you're doing. Right. It's sort of like, oh God, I wasn't doing it right before. Am I doing it right now? What do I do? Because we've lost confidence in our own choices. You just have to keep practicing at it, just like you did when you were young. Think of yourself as an adolescent trying to learn how to be in the world. And cut yourself some slack when you trip and you stumble and you say something stupid again, because you will. I know I do it. I don't know if any of you do, but that's kind of the process of change. We test the edges. The 2-year-old that you put a boundary, do not cross over that line. The 2-year-old will look at you and go, does he mean it? Does he mean it? And step over the line. And you
look at you while they do it. And look at you while they do it.
Yeah. And that's what you have to do with yourself. You have to, I don't think reparenting is exactly the right terminology. A lot of people rebel against it, but there is some of that. If you imagine yourself at 2 or 3 when you were first injured and nobody was out there holding and protecting you, how are you going to develop trust with the world? How can you believe any stranger would believe in you and stick by you no matter what? So now, as you're evolving into another generation of you, you have a chance to look back and say, okay, what did I need? What did I need then? So that must mean, just like you can tell when somebody's bullshitting you, this is where you can say, well, I can imagine this person needs a hug right now. That's empathy. I can imagine this person needs to be heard. That's empathy. I can imagine this person needs to win the game. I'm gonna lose it because I don't need it. You see, I don't need to win because I'm comfortable with me. So if they need it right now, it's okay for me to let go. It's an amazing process, but once it clicks in, the new habits take over where the old ones occupied, and that reappropriation thing you were talking. There's a great way to phrase that, by the way. It's rather remarkable.
That was a very powerful question, the reappropriation, because I do it now and I didn't think of, I wouldn't have called it that, But one thing that Doc was talking about, the empathy, 2 of my kids don't know how to hug. One does. I never knew how to hug. So I'm seeing it now. I'm like, why don't you hug me like I hug you? Like, Dad, what are you talking about? I wasn't a hugger. Like the empathy thing, like, come here, let me, no, I didn't even identify that. I'm like, so 2 of my kids don't. My youngest son, he does. So there's a possibility that 2 of my kids could be, as they get older, become narcissists. I don't know. I really believe.
But you could lead them. You could lead the way and stop them before they
start
get
practicing doing it.
So how is it like
25 years ago? 25 years ago, my husband left. No fault of his own. And it was a huge funeral. About 300 people came. And I was not a toucher because I hadn't been touched well. Not so much abuse, but it was just that I hadn't been held.
Right.
So all day I'm standing by the casket and everybody that came by hugged me. And by the end of that line of 300 people, I finally understood why hugging was so endorphin producing. There was a whole new sense of being valued, that somebody is willing to embrace you and hold all of your hurts, all of your sorrows, all of your joys in just a few seconds. It's a life-changing thing to do.
Seconds.
Yeah. Yes. So Leon, with showing affection, even saying I love you and hugging, what is that like for you?
So what happened in therapy, we talk about love. And I was like, you know what? When a woman told me she loved me, I was gone. I hated it, didn't want to hear it. And I wouldn't say it back. I would get mad. I'm like, just don't say it. Leon, how come we gonna be in a relationship? We don't talk about love. I didn't want to hear it. Ooh, I did not want to hear that. And so in therapy, she said, well, Mr. Walker, is there anything that you love about her? And I was like, yeah. My one girlfriend years ago, she had this little square forehead. She had this little bitty ears, nice lips. So I was like, those things. But when it came to saying, I love you, like, and feeling it, she said, just concentrate on her forehead, maybe. Concentrate on her ears, you know? Concentrate on the things that draw you into her instead of her words that push you away. And so I was like, okay, I'll try that. And so what I did was that made me become a little more affectionate, right? The romance, I struggled with the romance. I was like, I don't like flowers and all of that. The front of your bathwater. No, I don't want to do it. And so me being a macho guy in the military, I was like, we just go on the Philippine lines. We're going to have sex. We're going to have all these women that can roll out the red carpet that come home. I got to make love to you. No, that ain't going to happen. And so I had to learn how to love other things about her that would make her feel more loving from me instead of, okay,
I'm
Lan,
sure you've heard the expression, you catch more flies with honey.
yeah,
And,
right.
and
So
so the trick is that if you find something that you like, tell her. Just
So
say, I really like your smile. I really like the smile of your eyes. Just get in the habit.
And so I didn't
And
have that.
her response to you will be naturally pulling in, and you don't have to conquer her. You
So-
will have mutual agreement.
But I had to conquer her, Doc, because that made me feel good about and being successful in conquering somebody that I didn't think that I could conquer. Then when I conquered her, I had nothing left. And so I'm running all these women down into the ground and starving them. But anyway, try to answer your question. In therapy, yeah. So I think about those therapy days where, you know, I need to be more complimentive. I need to be more attentive. I need to desire what she desires as her in a person and not just a sexual toy. Okay, because like I mentioned earlier, there was a time where I was scared of women as a kid. And I'm like, this is not right. Little boys supposed to like girls, you know. So I had to change my. There was a whole dynamic shift and
The paradigm. is wrong.
paradigm shift for me. It was like here, this, that. It was shift. I'm like, this is wearing me out. So I get to the military. I had to become this person I really wasn't, and then I started believing who I was. That's a false sense of reality. And then I started liking who I was, and I started loving who I was. So I'm like, I love this. So I'm not going back to this guy that was scared of little girls. Oh no, you know, I got to be macho. I got to be overbearing. I got to be competitive. I got to be, you know, abusive, you know? And so that's what made me feel better. So anyway, to answer your question, I had to learn about different things to like about her, to make her feel good about me, you know, make her feel good and not want to always want to know if I loved her, because I had to show it through touch, physical touch. And that goes into love languages.
Well, what do you need to feel in other words, what do you need from a woman to feel good? Something small, a gesture, a look. What makes you more responsive to her as a person, that you begin to open up more? What is it about her that captures you so that you give her more of yourself? It's the stages of giving. You give up pieces of yourself at a time. And you begin to open up. And the best thing about loving somebody is you can be your worst self, the worst thing you ever imagined about it yourself, and they're going to love you anyway. And if you have that with somebody, that is gold.
Yeah.
You can be having your worst day and acting out like nobody's business, and that person is there to comfort you.
I had that, but I pushed it away.
Oh.
I was on a
What it looks like.
Yeah, I was doing a radio station interview, and he asked me, he said, Leon, how do you know you have the right woman? I've always had the right woman. They had the wrong man. I had to be honest with myself about that.
Mm-hmm. Slow that down a little bit. Say it with purpose. You're flying through that sentence like it's just, well, I had cancer, so it's no big deal. You know, I'm serious. You can't take that in at that speed.
Right. I thought Coach KJ was going to say something. I want to cut him off, but I was doing a
Don't
radio.
put that on me. Don't put that on me, man.
Okay.
Run it back. Run it back.
I run it back. How do you know?
She had the wrong man, huh?
Yeah. How do you know when you have the right woman? I said, I always had the right woman. They had the wrong man in me. So go back to what you were saying, Doc. The golden part, having somebody that accepts you for who you are and all that stuff. I always had that, but I pushed it away because I was afraid to emotionally connect with women.
You're afraid to be seen. Being seen is scary. It's like, okay, here, I'm going to open up the inside of myself. I had a young woman come to me at first meeting, and I have a gift for getting people to open up about themselves, but there's pacing in therapy. If you do it too fast, it can be dangerous. It produces the one visit cure, as we call it. That means they run like hell because you got inside when you weren't ready yet. They weren't ready yet, but they let you in and they got scared. So I thought things were going well. She was supposed to come back the next week. And I called her up because I was instructed. I was in training. I was still learning about slowing down, not going so deep to start with that they felt unsafe when they left the office. Not so, and that's a whole other art form. And she was 22. She was having a conflict with her religion. And she was beating herself up because she thought she was breaking the rules, and she was just a young kid. And I said, have you ever asked yourself why there's an eraser on the pencil? And she says, what has that got to do with this? I said, well, somebody figured out a long time ago that there would be mistakes. And the eraser allows you to repair the mistake. And for myself, I thought that was a brilliant way of helping her forgive herself, because I'm feeling full of me, right? She didn't come back, and I called her. I said, what happened? She said, I just didn't like that eraser remark. She wasn't ready to hear that. She needed to be immersed in her guilt for a while until she was ready to release it. But kind of like that with yourself, when you reveal yourself too much, the other person may not be able to handle that big of a thing in the early stages. Just give them a chance to know the smiling, jovial guy you can be.
Right. Or it could happen in a reverse type of mindset. So with empaths, they're open, their hearts on their sleeves, they're wide open. That's who you are. You get what you get, and it's always good. But what happens with empaths, they talk about what they're not getting in their current relationship. If they're on their way out, they tell you what they want, what they need, what they like, what they desire. And then what happens, they latch on because you start to breadcrumb them based on what they told you. So it could also have a reverse adverse effects on an empath, because empaths going to keep going, giving. And then when you realize what they like a little text in the morning, or they like a note on the toilet paper, or they like everybody, or they like
that's just manipulation. You're just working them.
I'm sorry. Did you say note on the toilet paper?
See?
Yeah.
I need to be in on this.
I heard that.
What is that?
The note on the toilet paper?
Yeah.
Well, okay, toilet paper is which way it goes. Who decides?
It goes okay, since I brought it up, AJ, you're right. If she goes there in the morning before you go to where you're going to go to the bathroom, leave a note. Hi, sexy. I love you.
Oh, okay.
Going in the bathroom in the morning anyway. She's gonna sit on the toilet anyway.
Right.
Sit down. She gonna see it. So you starting their day off.
Right. I think that's pretty sexy. That's pretty romantic. So it's in you.
I can't imagine why that never crossed my mind. I never read it in a book. I never heard it on a podcast.
You're right with a pen on toilet paper.
And you just won the internet just now with that one little tip about toilet paper.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But there's another thing about toilet paper. Who said it was the woman's job to turn the toilet paper, or which direction it goes? I finally came to the point that said, well, whoever finds the empty roll gets to put it on the way they want.
Whatever they want. Exactly.
And then there's no fighting over which way the toilet paper is. There's no fighting over whether something in the cupboard is moved from here to. the thing is we spend so much time quibbling over the unnecessary, the things that we just want our creature comforts. If you finally start cohabitating with someone, if I live with a neat freak, in about 2 weeks, they've had enough of my living style because I don't put things there the way they do, and they're uncomfortable all the damn time. And I said, well, I learned a long time ago that people were more important than things. So I am less concerned about whether there's dust in my house. It's going to be there anyway. I'm just going to be moving it from one place to another.
Right. Right.
I'm just saying that you have to learn how to loosen up,
That's right.
give, take.
That's right.
Maybe you take more for a while and then you decide to get generous and give a little bit more. And then there's a new balance that comes in and your serotonin levels become normal and you're not looking for danger. You're no longer functioning from a place of fear. It's human development is very complex and it doesn't stop when we become 18. It's a lifelong process. And you're doing what we're doing at this age, which is the generativity side is giving back. We want to leave something behind us that has some permanent meaning with someone. I became a therapist because I had been so broken and it took me a lot of money and a lot of years to fix it. And I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to be there for someone else. And I made a choice to volunteer. I never made a dime because I didn't want to have to drive my practice by needing the money to be paid so that I could pay the rent. I had a regular job. I did therapy on the side. And it was a choice because I had been helped and I wanted to give that back. You're doing the same thing. So through the way you help others also informs you some more, because the better you can talk about the things that you learned from, the things that shifted you from this place to this place to this place is where people will begin to believe you. It's less about what you were and how extremely different you are, and more about how you show that every day.
And you said something earlier, Doc, around edges, and I think that's another key element of this stage that I think you're right that we all are experimenting with, because we use the word boundaries usually to like put something up to keep other people from infringing upon us. But edges denotes that we are seeking how much of us we can be without harming someone else.
Exactly.
Right? So and that speaks back to the whole appropriation thing. Like, so you used all of that was in you to create the narcissist version of you. And now you're finding those same tools and exploring like, okay, how much of me can I be without being that narcissist again?
Right.
So you're not trying, don't shrink back into being something that you're not.
Yeah.
Fully embody everything that you are.
I wasn't diagnosed as a narcissist, but as I became to understand the criteria for certain things, I thought, no wonder people were doing this. No. And I was too needy. I was way too needy. Yeah. Because I hadn't received what I needed as a child. And so you're constantly hungry. That creates a narcissistic approach to life. Nobody else matters, just me. But I never did that. I would always give. But then I'd feel resentful. Now I give because I choose to. I never feel resentment for giving. It's all of that. That's where it's not forgiveness, but it's a peace. It's a knowing. It's a knowing who you are and where you want to be tomorrow. These kind of conversations, I think, are so healthy for anybody who struggles with, am I being selfish if I want this? No. Healthy narcissism is important. And there is such a thing. If you're hungry, you need to know it. You need to feed yourself. If you're thirsty, you need to know it and you need to drink. If you need tenderness, it's all there. That's healthy narcissism. It's when you start to take from someone before they can give it back to you, or they're not ready yet. That's when it's too narcissistic. Those are
All right.
labeled. I hate
Wait,
labels.
Sandy, I'm so sorry. I wish we had more
Oh,
time.
no, it's all right.
But we literally only have 5 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Two things I want to do. Leon, for the women in your past and for the men in your past who you've inflicted pain, what can you say right now to them to just give them that closure? Because I still feel like, you're doing this work and you're doing this wonderful, amazing work on yourself and you're healing, you're on the path of healing. I think they need to hear something from you for their healing as well.
For the women, it was never your fault. Everything I did was because of my childhood. My uncle touched me, my babysitter molested me, my cousin molested me, my parents divorced. So my anger were never a direct reflection of you or what you were doing. I was probably jealous of you, insecure, didn't know, I knew that I couldn't love you, was afraid that you may leave me. So I did whatever I could do to make you hold on to me, make you latch on, make you believe me, make you love me, make you want me even more. I wanted you to fear me leaving you. So it was never you. For the young men that I led in the Navy, that I was verbally abusive to, I didn't know how to be a man. At 30 years old, I was 10 years old mentally. At 40 years old, I was 10 years old mentally. So they looked to me to lead them, to guide them, to make them better men. But I couldn't give them what I didn't have. I had issues that I never resolved. And so the grandiose mindset covered up my insecurities and my being inept. And so that made them think that I was this person, but I wasn't. The military saved me because you put on rank and people automatically start kissing your butt. And so I went with that, but I wasn't who I was in uniform. I wasn't that guy. When you get promoted in the Navy, they say, you get a letter says, we promote you to chief. You get increased responsibility and increased authority. I took that on, but I wasn't ready for it. I was very immature. And some of those young guys that I led or misled or verbally abused were more mature than I was. And I was probably 20 years older than they were. So to them, I'm sorry for misleading and deceiving them.
Beautiful, beautiful. This is a good time for you to share about your book that's about to be released.
So
Tobias, can you put that up?
It's going to be now in February, Shari, because the publishing company have it now, but they need 60 to 90 days to put it together, do the interior design, and promote and publish it. So on our next show with you, probably January, it'll be January. I'll be doing free giveaways for probably the whole month of January because it comes out February 10th. That's my goal. So yeah, it's called, everybody heard about the 5 love languages. So I had the 5 love language book a few years ago, and I started reading it a year ago, and I immediately put it down, and I got a voice said, write a book about the loveless languages. So it's called The 7 Loveless Traits. So a love language is acts of service. A loveless trait is acts of disservice. So I did the opposite of what the love languages are, because we don't talk about that enough.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to that, and we'll definitely have you back on. KJ and Sandy, I thank you so much for being here. KJ, you have any last remarks you want to make? And then Sandy afterwards. We have 2 minutes.
Listen, Shar, I'm happy to be on this. I'm excited that I got a chance to hang out with you all. And great to meet you, Leon, and great to be on with you again, Sandy. Listen, this is an important ongoing conversation. And there's so much memeology going on around narcissism and empaths that we get it wrong more than we get it right, because they're over-reduced, oversimplified. We need to stop using these things as if we are clinical psychologists with diagnosis power. And think about it more as traits, qualities, behaviors, actions, habits that can keep us from being in good relationship, and focus on that versus labeling someone and saying they can't change, because that nobody wants to be in a box.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. Sandy?
What I would like to say is thank you, Leon,
You're welcome.
for your service,
You're welcome. Mhm.
for your career. Regardless of how you got there, obviously you did a job well done for a long time. And now you have decided to focus on what Carl Rogers wrote a book called On Becoming Human. And it's very old, but it was the basis for humanistic counseling. Before that, it was just Freud and a couple of other guys. And this was a whole other approach, client-centered therapy. You work with what they are and you help them become their best self. And you're on your way, and that's a great thing. And you're owning
Thank you so much.
past. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Hope to see you all again.
You all are awesome. I love you guys, and we will be in
Yeah.
touch.
You all.
We're gonna do
All right.
it again. We're gonna try to get that book up, Leon. He's
Okay.
having some trouble with his screen. Let's see.
It was
Let's
nice
close
meeting
out.
you all. I know we out of time, but it was nice meeting you, KJ and Doc. Nice meeting you all.
I'm not, just call me Sandy.
It
First
feels
of all, I don't have a PhD. I haven't earned that title. I am a
Well,
master.
You've earned it. You've done the
No,
work.
I'm not a doctor. I am a master's of psychotherapy that I've had clinical practice for
That's good
22
enough.
years.
Hey, that's good enough for me.
I agree
Okay.
with you, Leon. I say it all the time. All right, Tobias, can we get that up?
But yeah, sure. I'll do whenever you're ready, we'll do a giveaway. I'm gonna do everybody to interview me. I'm gonna do a free book giveaway for a whole hour on their platform.
Absolutely. I'm ready for it. I'm not
I
sure
have
what's
to excuse
happening.
myself because I've been waiting for a time to go to the ladies' room.
Do
And
that.
I have a meeting at 7:30 that I have to get down for. Thank you for being so
She's in
open and-
California. That's why she said 7:30. So appreciate you being here. Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks,
Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Nice meeting
Bye-bye.
you.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Sandy.
Tobias, it's on the video that I sent you with the bios.
Yeah, it was showing on my screen. It's not showing on yours.
No, we can't see anything. I don't know if anybody else, I just want to put the book cover up before we left. There we are. Go back a little bit. To the end, yeah. There it is. So keep an eye out for this, everybody.
Yeah, February 10th is the day. I'll do a pre-sales in January, and January I'll be doing book giveaways for a whole month.
Awesome.
Exciting.
Awesome. Oh, Kevin, we forgot you have something coming up that you wanted to, you don't
Nope.
want to do it right now?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Not ready for prime time.
Gotcha. Okay.
Maybe next time.
Okay. Well, remember that. I'm so sorry. All right. Thank you guys so much. Are